Melinda West, Monster Gunslinger by KC Grifant, published by Brigade's Gate Press, 2023. In an old west overrun by monsters, a stoic gunslinger must embark on a dangerous quest to save her friends and stop a supernatural war. Sharpshooter Melinda West, 29, has encountered more than her share of supernatural creatures after a monster infection killed her mother. Now Melinda and her charismatic partner, Lance, offer their exterminating services to desperate towns, fighting everything from giant flying scorpions to psychic bugs. But when they accidentally release a demon, they must track a dangerous outlaw across treacherous lands and battle a menagerie of creatures, all before an army of soul-devouring monsters descend on Earth. I was really looking forward to this book. My interest was raised immediately at a dark fantasy-type scenario in an Old West setting, and I was hoping for or expecting a Jonah Hex-type story. But that's not what was delivered. It was a good story overall, but it was much different than what I was expecting. Let's discuss. Melinda West and her partner Lance are getting ready to retire from the monster hunting business and set up their home and live silently from here on out. As you could have guessed already though, that's probably a hard business just to walk away from. The story begins with Melinda and Lance finishing up their last job. The money they've made from ridding this last small town of a monster infestation puts them over the top in their savings, and both are looking forward to moving on to a more simpler life. They return home to their loved ones that helped raise them, only for their happy homecoming to be attacked by soul-stealing spiders. Now they are thrust back into the hunting game, only this time it's to save the soul of Lance's mentor and father figure. In the process of trying to track down where the spider creatures came from, where they took the soul to, and who they are working for, Melinda and Lance are thrown into new creatures and places that they are not even accustomed to. In the process, Lance has a portion of his own soul taken as well, which doubles the stakes and the drive that pushes Melinda further into her quest. Now, admittingly, it wasn't as gritty as I was hoping for originally, but I'm not sure if that has me on the fence with this book or if it were the characters themselves. Our main character, Melinda, had some great potential. She presents herself as stoic as the blurb suggests, but deep down she isn't really that much. Sure, she puts on a mask of it, but the reader gets her thoughts throughout the story, which are full of self-doubt. Another trope we encounter is the story constantly talks about how Melinda never misses, Melinda never fails. Yet she continuously misses and always fails. The quest she is on gets more complicated with each turn because she continuously misses a shot, loses a fight, or makes the wrong decision in the heat of the moment. Of course, with Lance now out of the picture, the book has to give us some new characters for Melinda to reluctantly team up with. Here's where some more potentially great characters should have shined, but fell a little bit short. Angelo and Topaz are bounty hunters, fresh on the heels of someone that Melinda and Lance are now tracking, and they are always one step ahead of Melinda. Angelo fits the mold pretty well, but he seems to get lost in the description for the most part. He seems to bounce back and forth between Western cowboy and East Coast city boy. His personality fits the story well though, and his methods were in stark contrast to Melinda's, adding a playful new complication to the group's quest. Topaz is what the story really needed, or should have been. She was a playful and flirty character, again in stark contrast to Melinda, but when the rubber meets the road, she was a complete badass. As the story progressed, the opportunity was there for Melinda and Topaz to take the story in a girl power all-out onslaught on the world around them, but it just didn't play out. I think that team up would have made the story so much better. Eloise is one of the main villains, and the personality that I felt would have much better suited Melinda's character, or at least the character I was expecting. Eloise has little to no issue handling anything the main group threw at her, and most of the time it was all four at the same time: Melinda, Lance, Angelo, and Topaz. Eloise had no issue with them hardly at all. With all these types of characters, Melinda, Topaz, and Eloise could have easily carried the story in a complete femme fatale Western story that completely destroys the established tropes of any fantasy or Western. Yet it didn't. I think it was a missed opportunity, and I think the lost potential of what the story could have been is what has me questioning it. For what the story is, though, it was good. I just see so many places where I thought it was going to be an epic new direction, and it wasn't. I enjoyed the story, but at the same time I was let down. I hope that makes sense. For the world itself, it never becomes completely clear if it is truly in the Old West of the USA, or if it's a new fantasy world that is just very similar. As a matter of fact, outside of Melinda and Lance's cliche Western jargon, it didn't feel much like a Western setting at all. It could have been. It could also been straight fantasy. Now that I'm looking back on it, it could have been steampunk. I guess it left a lot to the reader's imagination, but it never gives enough to cement one of those settings into place for the reader. I had a hard time getting a consistent visual to play out in my mind. With all that being said, though, I still give this a 3-star rating. For anyone that has wondered, my 1 and 2-star ratings never make it to this channel, with some rare exceptions. I thought long and hard about doing this one, ultimately deciding to go with 3 stars in the long run. It may have missed the mark a few times with me, but that doesn't mean that it would with you. If my concerns seem to be too petty, or if you don't like the type of characters I was hoping for, then you may like this book. The writing style and story itself is solid. I have no complaints there. It just boiled down to a taste thing for me. It was good, but it could have been better. Let's go find our next story. Maybe something more on the strange and weird. Until next time, find yourself a good book and enjoy a break from reality.